did not pay for 5 MCATs, 5 bar mitzvahs, and 5 brises. All that brisket for them to fail me now. If they love me, they'll have a spare roll in here somewhere.
Calamity fell on the 13th of March. Barb entered quarantine quite in the lurch. She'd heard about COVID, but hadn't prepared, and the paper product shortage had her quite scared. Barb shopped and stood in line. A case, she swore, will soon be mine. But by the time it was her turn to enter the store, not a tissue or roll was left on the floor. She could not find a square to spare. She could not find one anywhere. There wasn't any in the back. They didn't have a secret rack. For a moment, Barb thought she might cry. Then she spotted the last roll of cheap single-ply. It's a start, Barb declared, snatching it up. It's better than nothing to tidy my butt. Barb hurried home, her treasure to hide, away from the schnorrers with greedy schnorr eyes. In summer, she realized one wasn't enough. The COVID pandemic was still pretty rough. What would she do if her one roll ran out? Barb took up her schlepp bag and scurried about, with her mask covering both her nose and her mouth, collecting TP from each business and house. Barb's TP mountain was a real thing of beauty. COVID couldn't keep her from doing her duty. By square and by roll and by package she built, and maybe she felt just a small pang of guilt, knowing she had what some others did not.
Okay, but it's not like I'm taking a lot. I just grab when I'm going. I don't leave the roll bare. What difference do I make with one little square?
Barb wasn't taking out of greed. Hers was just a butt in need. The pandemic dragged on, filling the news, and during Cheshbon Nefesh, Barb's year-end review, she started to think and she started to feel that maybe her FOMO hadn't been real. If she hadn't have panicked, she would have been fine. Perhaps scarcity was a trick of her mind. But you can't take one square back to the store, so what could Barb do with the TP galore? How could she fix what was surely a sin? Oh, what a pickle Barb found herself in. The longer Barb thought, the verklempter she felt. But one day, while shopping for Hanukkah gelt, a simple idea sprang to life in her brain.
I know,
Barb shouted.
I'll give it away.
Immediately, Barb set to rapping, interrupting her cat's 18 hours of napping. It took her a week, working 4-hour shifts, but finally she finished her Hanukkah gifts. She gave them to man, woman, and child alike, delivering paper long into the night, and they heard her exclaim as she drove out of sight.
Happy Hanukkah, and to all a good wipe.
I am super into The Mandalorian right now, and tonight feels like a great time to hook everything we've been talking about to Mando's jetpack and see where it takes us. We started off examining the miracle of light, right? I mean, we literally start every celebration with Shehekianu. It's a miracle that we survived to reach this moment, not only to reach, but to enjoy it. Side note, the best Shehekianu of my life was at our wedding. And I definitely enjoy being married. So for those of you who've watched, this is a callback to the end of the first episode in the first season, that gorgeously lit scene where Mando and the child connect for the very first time. So let's think of the child as our nefesh, the divine soul that we carry within, and Mando as the rest of us, the body and mind and flotsam that we carry around every day doing mundane, unholy, non-spiritual things. We're aiming for everything to be spiritual, but that's another drosh. The Mandalorian was a foundling, meaning he lost it all, and he was transported to another world, adopted into a warring society with a very strict set of values and guidelines. You've heard that adage, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Again, most religions and philosophies agree that this state of flesh and blood and greed and strife is not our natural nor our perfect state. There's more, and the details are where they diverge. In this case, Mando is a kind of convert. He wasn't born on Mandalore, he assimilated into the culture. As we follow Mando's quest to return the child to his kind, the Jedi, fans mark a strong contrast between the way, as practiced by the Mandalorian, and the religion of the Force, practiced by the Jedi. The former is centered around war, the latter around peace. The Mandalorian way is founded on a bedrock of secrecy and individuality, the Force on transparency and unity. Mando is impervious to most attacks in his Beskar armor, but the child wields the very power of the universe in his tiny three-fingered hand. Mando is rightfully awed, frightened, fascinated, and dedicated to this vulnerable yet formidable being, in much the same way as the Israelites standing at Sinai. And, like Jews covenanting with God, Mando says, I don't really understand, but I'm willing to learn. You chose me, and I will follow that calling. Mando, the realm of physicality and desire, has opened himself to something greater. By accepting the mantle of chosen protector, he has begun a transformation, the impact of which will be felt across the galaxy. Mando is a Maccabee. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty, he steps up when others fall back, and he stands by his beliefs no matter the cost. Dedication to the game? He's got it. The Mandalorian would let Moff Gideon go on a Friday if he was Shabbos Shomer. But as he interacts with the child, his credo begins to soften. The way might not be the only way. In yoga, we call this stira and sukha. We need a strength as well as softness to balance. What is he really keeping himself hidden for? Why is that important? Does the fact that Bo-Katan, a Mandalorian by blood, shows her face make her less observant, less Mandalorian? She's certainly not lacking leadership or conviction. Throughout the second season, we see Mando's way begin to include chesed, or compassion. What good is being right if it hurts someone? What does it mean to choose life, especially if you know that you're not choosing your own? There's no compassion from either side in the Hanukkah story. It do be like that sometimes, especially in war, especially in the stories written by men. We read a history about man in conflict with man, about riches on one hand and God on the other. About God, but with as little direct involvement as the Purim spiel. God didn't cause the earth to suddenly swallow the army, nor were the hideout caves miraculously filled with riches. No. The Hanukkah story reads like Mando's quest to take the child home. A story of hardscrabble DIY redemption. Honestly, that's the best kind. In this day, at this time, the sea doesn't usually part so we can walk on dry land. We have to walk into the water like a nation, and usually we have to swim. I see a lot of posts on social media that read like someone sitting on the edge of the sea, perhaps dangling their feet off the dock. I wish things were different. I don't have. Give me money. It's not fair that. If I only had blank, I would be able to accomplish. These are the lies we tell ourselves because following the way is too hard. Likewise, as a small business owner, I've seen way too many apology posts this year for things way beyond our entrepreneurial control. That's too much way, not enough force, not enough compassion. So remember from night 4, God is Mr. Miyagi. God wants us to find balance. On a scale of Mando to the child, where are you in your transformation? Are you focused on fighting the world to get yours, or are you in touch with the Force? As Alex often says, how's that working out for you? Tonight, I invite you to take off your helmet, stretch out your hand, and connect with your nefesh in whatever way feels best to you. See if you can soften just a little bit. Take stock of the values that define you. See if you can balance your outer Mando with your inner child. Use the force within. This is the way.